we invented cloud before cloud was a word, in the sense that like everything was uniform.
The IPO is never an exit for the founders.
Yeah, just continuation of the journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a trust vote from the public and you have to build on that.
The big guys who are well funded can afford to have local hosting. The small guys can't afford that. We thought was our entry point into the market, where you could do dedicated servers and VPS servers and any kind of contractless compute in India. The very first customer showed faith in India and in us and cut a check for 30,000 rupees and said that, okay, by this date, I need a server in India or you can return the check.
As the business changed with this GPU focus and what AI is doing, what does E2E today look like?
We are building a lot of software for with a view that like a lot of people will eventually be able to use this software as the sovereign AI and sovereignty for the cloud takes off.
I think AI is going to be the new electricity of the world. And as E2E, we see ourselves as being the power grid of that.
What's one AI trend you think is overhyped? So if you go a step back and say, who's Tarun? And of course, I'd love to ask Srishti as well, your better half. But who's Tarun Dua that he actually came up with this idea that this was all a market, this was a need? So walk us through a little bit of your background on why this problem even arose in your head and why did you think E2E was a solution at that point?
Okay. So a part of my journey was spent in the US. I think I might have spent 6-7 months working in the Valley through an outsourcing company. And over there, I kind of like went to a Linux user group meeting where a small startup which used to call itself Flickr of videos was presenting. That turned out to be YouTube. Now nobody knows Flickr, but at that time YouTube called itself like Flickr of videos.
And Flickr was acquired by Yahoo.
Flickr was acquired by Yahoo. So YouTube was kind of like happened because there was enough compute available in the Valley. Like there were enough providers in US who could give you like a dedicated server for $100. No questions asked. You could like take it, return it. Like it was completely contractless. Compared to India, where we saw that only biggies could afford to have like local servers and local content and faster delivery through like having a lower latency to their audience. So what I thought was that like that's a gap in the market. The big guys who are well funded can afford to have local hosting. The small guys can't afford that. And again, in the Valley, the culture was that like small guys will become big guys. So that we thought was our entry point into the market, where you could do dedicated servers and VPS servers and any kind of contractless compute in India. So we started doing that. Our original idea was that like host the servers in Singapore. Then the very first customer showed faith in India and in us and cut a check for like 30,000 rupees and said that, okay, by this date, I need a server in India or you can return the check.
Who was the first customer?
So that was an ex-colleague.
Okay.
They continued to remain a customer for a very, very long time. We still speak sometimes.
Yeah.
So the customer number one, like CRN number one, remained there for I think like 15, 16 years of our existence.
Lovely.
So that was that. Like basically we started off. So we had a couple of friends who were doing Nolarity and they had like cracked some deal with a local data center. So we rode on top of their deal that, okay, you are already selling to these guys. And we negotiated a small contract where our costs were far in excess of the revenue that we were going to get from that 30,000 rupee check on a monthly basis. So like we were in business and initially we had a very small static website which just listed the prices and had a contact number, like call us, and like practically for most part it was me racking and stacking the servers in the DC and doing the customer support and also answering the sales calls. So for a while it was like that until kind of like we so there was somebody who had a lot of servers in the US. They were looking for some other Tarun. So it was a wrong number. This person called me and I was like, no, I'm not that Tarun. Then I reverse looked up on Google. Okay, who is this person? Okay, this person has a lot of web workloads, runs a lot of websites, has a team. So I was like, called him back the next day morning, and I was like, yeah, like I wanted to talk to you. You spoke to me yesterday, but like some other context. So this guy was like a true startup guy. Like he said that, yeah, so come back tomorrow to meet me at our office, and same day he cut a check. So he was like, okay, I'll take your servers as long as you can deliver 99% uptime. We'll do business with you, and that became a customer that brought in their competitors. So a competitor of theirs called and asked me like, why are their websites so fast? They're like, okay, one is like we are hardworking people. We have fine-tuned their servers. We know Linux. We know web scale. We know load balancing and all that stuff. The other part is the servers are in India. So they were like, okay, let us also try out. And that competitor again turned out to be someone who was very well known in the startup community.
Why aren't you naming anyone? You can name people.
So this was Amit Jain from CarDekho.
Yeah. Okay.
So then they became like a kind of like a inflection customer for us.
Yeah, it's a
We
huge
even
anchor
got
customer.
called by Flipkart because CarDekho was our customer. And I think for the next 6-7 years, we never had any salespeople. Every year we grew more than 100%. And mostly it was word of mouth in the startup and digital native space. For us, it was like, okay, let's do a small Series A round.
Yeah, but which wasn't happening, right?
Which was
That's
not
why we
happening.
went this
So
path.
basically, like we treated it as an alternative to a Series A round.
Correct.
So I
And-
think like long after that, I think many investors told me that like people are threatening us that, okay, we are going to do a SME IPO rather than take their round.
Yeah.
So I think we set that trend.
That's awesome. Srishti, you were saying something.
I was saying that even the merchant banker, he was like, it was his first IPO. Obviously, it was our first. And then we started in November and we did the IPO in May.
That's right.
The whole lot of like endless amount of documentation was required. And
Yeah, mostly I would have given up. So it
at
was all
one
Srishti.
point, Tarun said like, let's not do it. It's like too hard.
I think he said it every week, as far as I recall. He said, that's why I said it was a very reluctant IPO CEO. And then from your lenses, what changed? Like as a CFO, of course you were reporting to us, but there was no other investor on the cap table. Now you're a public company CEO, for what it's worth.
See, for SME IPO, like not much.
It's more liberal.
It's
6
most
months
liberal.
reporting.
6 months numbers reporting and not like much pressure from the quarterly pressure is not there.
Yeah.
But once you move to the main board, which we did in 2022, like quarter on quarter pressure of the numbers, endless investor calls, quarter on quarter, like why has your revenue not increased it? You said that in the earnings call, what happened? So that pressure has always been there.
And that's continued even today.
That's continued even today.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. I get calls, even though Blume's not an investor. I said, I'm not in the picture. Why are you asking me? But even I get calls on E2E's help. But tell me, crazy interesting IPO.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall, what was it?
70 times it was over.
Yeah, but was the issue was about.
Issue was 21.99.
Yeah.
That included our secondary?
That included the secondary.
Ah,
I think
so-
the primary capital post the issue expenses.
So I'm going to reveal some secrets to the
14,
audience
yeah.
we
today.
got was I think like 14 crores or
14
something.
CR we got in the
So
bank account.
firstly, it was a 21 crore plus IPO.
Mhm.
Tarun made some of us sell our shares, not
He
in a
did.
forced way, but like in a kind, gentle way.
Mhm.
And the hack was Tarun wanted to stay majority owner. Proper like Indian, North Indian Banya founder. Like, yeah, I want to be the owner. 51%. So he basically said he did the math and said, if you sell this much, I can continue to be the owner.
1/3.
But I think the bankers obviously went fairly aggressive on the pricing, which upset you. It upsets all founders.
Right.
Saying, why is it so aggressive? I could have left a lot more money on the table.
Right.
And that's how I think it felt, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
What is the indicator for that? You were saying it, Srishti, but I cut you.
I
How much
think-
were you oversubscribed by?
We were oversubscribed by 70 times.
70 times. So
Mhm.
70 into like that 21, we're talking about 1,500 crores
Yes.
of demand for that 21
Yes.
crores.
Mhm.
And of course, we can't get a benefit of that.
Mm.
And the
Right.
guys who got allocated made out like bandits. How much did the stock run up on?
It was the IPO price was 57. I think it went up to 85 on the first day.
On the first day. Massive pop. And I got innumerable calls for the next month or two. How do we take a company's SMB IPO? I said, most of them won't qualify. They either don't make money or the SMB market is so harsh that it won't value your
Right.
fancy valuations.
Right.
So
right.
off the bat, this is a non-starter for most companies,
Right.
which most people couldn't make a sense of.
Mhm.
Right.
And the people who want to take the lessons did. right? Like Infolium later
Right.
took a leaf out of your page. Another
Right.
Fund One company.
Yes.
And I think Gaurav said, I want to learn, and came and became a board member.
Right.
Learned, and then he took it SME IPO
Right.
4-5 years later. But then, as you said, did it change the company's culture in terms of saying, oh, we're flush with money? Or was it just the setback from the customer that who went away?
I think both things went hand in hand. Like,
Okay.
we were like spending a lot more money than we were used to. So there was like, I think, like some letting go of like, okay, now we can do this, now we can do that. And the second part is then we got hit with like revenue loss, and we were like, yeah, this will make it up. But then eventually it became like a very slow process.
So the frugality runs in our DNA. So till date, I've never traveled business class. I can't get myself to pay 3 times the amount of money.
I sometimes cheaply get the free upgrades because sometimes the airline gives you coupons, but like, that's about it.
It shows in the culture of the firm. And what advice would you have from that experience on younger founders who think, well, first, like you, are wary of going public, and B, do you think it's a better mechanism sometimes than chasing private money, from your experience?
I think like okay, so I would say that like there is a clean path of going public and kind of like doing everything clinically and cleanly. I think that is a recommended path. Like, don't fall into the trap of making people happy. So whether they are happy or unhappy, like ultimately it is the founder or the entrepreneur who has to run the business for what is best for the business, not for the optics. So I think that's the main advice I have for people wanting to go public, that like don't play optics, work on your business as if you were private.
I would like to add on.
Yes,
here.
of course, please.
So the IPO is never an exit for the founders.
Yeah, just a continuation of the journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a trust vote from the public, and you have to build on that.
And somewhere or the other, like the infrastructure in India at first couple of years, that was not like really great. I think like by 2015-16, things started improving in terms of infra. We started to, I think 14 onwards, we started to get great uptimes and everything. Before that, it used to be that, okay, tonight, like what has happened? Again, like I would leave her alone at house and drive to the data center and see like, okay, what happened?
So, I think that's something that we've consistently seen about Tarun Dua, right? You're obsessed about, uptime, operational efficiency, getting into the tech, getting into the guts of the machine, obsessed about like customer reliability. How did you manage to build that culture? How did you balance that out with, being a CEO in that sense, which is far more broad-based? Like even as someone like me has grown up in the firm, I find it very difficult to balance all of this.
So I think initial few years, because we had no cash and there was no visibility of cash coming from anywhere, either as debt or equity. So we were very obsessed with managing the costs. So managing the cost meant that like we were literally designing our own servers, although we were not physically assembling them, but like it was usually our server design. We would pick the processor. We would say that, okay, we are going to scale up this processor alone. So don't have multitude of things. So any customer who came to us with a custom requirement, we would say no. So we would like, okay, we have built these servers. We can fit the solution for you in these servers only, but we are not going to buy like any hardware which is non-standard. So everything in software was open source or written by us. Everything on servers was designed by us in a way that you could do so we invented cloud before cloud was a word, in the sense that like everything was uniform. We treated our servers like cattle, not like individual named servers. And I think that just naturally happened because of the constraints. So I think constraints play a big role in what shapes you.
I think we sold at somewhere close to 250 crore market cap. And you have all of it, most of it, and you went to 9,000 at one point. And now I think you're settled somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000. What happened? Like, I mean, I don't think you expected it. I don't think we expected it.
Nobody expected it.
So first, take that in two parts. Both of you can speak from both your perspectives.
Sure.
What did you change between 19 and 21 that this happened? I know you alluded to GPUs, etc. How did Was the dramatic lift-off from Sam Altman's announcement or unveiling OpenAI?
I think that was the second inflection point.
Okay.
The first inflection point was COVID, of course.
So go through those 2 points for me.
Sure.
And then
So I think, like,
we'll come to
our
the stock journey, which was a
very
fun
early
ride.
GPU journey started for us in, like, I think 2016 or 17.
Why don't you give a 2-minute ready reckoner for the audience on what does this GPU world mean?
Sure.
And what is the context of it in what we're seeing today?
Sure.
Where AI is what most people speak about day in day out.
I think, like, I'll speak to the old hats in the Linux
Explain
world.
it to my mother.
The people who read Slashdot. So I think, like, 25 years back, like, I think, like, people on Slashdot were raving about, like, how a GPU can kind of, like, either draw triangles or rectangles, I don't remember which, and that involves, like, doing a lot of parallel math calculations. And there were people who had started using GPUs for doing maths in like parallel computations. I think that was the early trend of people catching on to desktop GPUs, using those very powerful processors to do a lot of things in parallel. So I think that kept on being there, and to NVIDIA's credit, they caught on to that trend, owned that trend, and kind of, like, fed into that by giving the libraries to those people who had been doing those kind of experiments. And I think that has stood them in like good stead.
Yeah.
And for us, like, of course, like, there were people who were doing analytics, people who wanted to do their analytics stuff on GPUs. And we knew GPUs as the add-on for a desktop machine. They were like, okay, like, shall we put it into the server? And I think, like, there was a lot of pain in terms of how to get those GPUs virtualized. And we succeeded in cracking those kind of problems. And kind of, like, we were making some amount of revenue. It was like we never thought of it as, so we had, like, a concept called moonshots. So where we said that, okay, we are going to do a WordPress as a service, we are going to do something on the GPUs.
I remember.
We were also talking about, like, how to run Tally on Linux.
Yes.
To avoid the licensing costs. We had a very frugal mindset, and we thought that, okay, when
customers will also enjoy
customers will also enjoy the cost cutting over there. Of course, none of those moonshots worked. Now, for GPU, it was actually one of the Blume startups who came to us and said that, like, look, this costs X amount on a hyperscaler, and we feel that this is too expensive. We were like, yeah, this looks expensive because a typical GPU costs only, like, less than $1,000. So nobody should be charging you $2,000 for a GPU per month. And that kind of opened our eyes that, okay, like, people are selling GPUs, and we are not even aware of it. Like, this is a moonshot we are missing. So we said, like, okay, let's go and invest some money into the GPUs. We bought, like, I think 20 of them. These were enterprise GPUs. Each one of them costed about 6 lakh or 7 lakhs.
Oh, wow.
And the desktop GPUs used to cost, like, I think 50,000-60,000 rupees.
Okay.
And then suddenly we had people from NVIDIA knocking our doors and, like, who are these guys who are buying these 20 GPUs? Nobody has bought, like, that many enterprise GPUs in one shot. So I think the sales guy at the distributor who sold those became a rock star over there. And the NVIDIA team was like, okay, like, let us figure out E2E.
Yeah.
And to their credit, I think, like, they worked with us. We did a lot of things together, not many successful. But I think the inflection came finally at the time of COVID. Like, next couple of years were a struggle on the GPU division. It was not a separate division or anything, but, like, there was struggle in terms of, like, how to fill up those GPUs. So, but then we learned a lot because that was some expensive hardware we bought. So we had to monetize it. So with that respect, that if an investment has to be made, it has to be made back. We had to learn GPUs because of that one, what you call, the flying high kind of a decision. That, like the Srishti said, like, Tarun goes and flies high in the sky. He builds castles in the sky and then, like, does something. And then we have to figure out, like, the whole team has to figure out, like, okay, how to make money out of this.
How has that journey been, Srishti? Just I can't even imagine how it must be to see your stock hit upper circuit for, like, months at end, right?
Just to give some perspective.
Yeah.
So a GPU has 17,000 cores.
Yeah.
And a typical CPU is 300 to 400 cores.
Yeah.
So that is the processing
Two
capacity.
of the CPUs have 300 to 400.
That is the processing capacity of a G
Correct,
class compared
correct.
to the CPU.
Correct.
So For my personal part, I do not check the stock price daily. I check it like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
So like we keep on getting calls, like price is increasing.
Yeah,
like
but
what has happened?
Yeah, you're
So
still
we always
answerable as
say
CFO at that point at least.
The standard answer, we can't talk about it.
Okay.
We have nothing to say on that.
Okay.
But that was like really, really overwhelming and surreal at the same time.
Yeah.
That it went to 5,200, 5,300.
Yeah.
And it was like what just happened?
Yeah. No, and in fact, it was funny because I think Tarun's on that chat. We still have a Blume Fund 1 chat. And I had said something like, someday soon when your stock was going up, that Tarun will become our first publicly listed billion-dollar company.
Yes.
And it just didn't stop. It went all the way and shot past the mark. I said, it's already here. No, but I'm thinking also at a personal level, I know you guys don't go to work every day and say, how much wealth have we created, etc. But how did this change employee morale and people's, self-worth or for all those years of hard work? Did they feel like their destiny was also avenged? And that,
exactly.
Yeah.
So for like the ESOPs, it's a different ballgame altogether.
Yeah.
If you are listed, like people in our company, they have made upwards of, if I can say that number, upwards of
multiple millionaires and multimillionaires.
Fantastic.
And,
it's a very fulfilling feeling to see that happen.
Helped us attract talent, retain talent. The ESOP part, like it has been wonderful for the people.
And like, what is the discussion at home when you saw your wealth grow 5% every day?
The only
I think at one point of time we stopped looking at it.
The only discussion, I think, I keep on telling Tarun, like, don't tell Saisha. She has to like figure out her own part. Don't tell like this is the paper money.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to tell her like how much money to it. She keeps on asking us, and I'm like very conservative.
That's a wrap on this weekday episode of the Blume podcast. We've handpicked these moments to give you the most valuable insights in the least amount of time. The full weekend episode drops soon on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. So stay tuned.
Our season partner Ultrahuman is back for a second time. I'm biased as the seed investor here, but their immensely loved brand is making waves globally. Ultrahuman is a health tech pioneer redefining how we track and improve our health. Their sleek titanium ring air and its new rare metal cousins accurately track sleep, movement, and recovery to deliver real-time health insights and personalized nudges. Ultrahuman is creating a unique health ecosystem built on top of the wearable data. It's just launched Blood Vision in the US in addition to India, a blood testing service that offers a panel of over 100 longevity and chronic disease biomarkers with the convenience of an at-home test. They're also launching Ultrahuman Home globally for environment-aware analysis and sleep insights. Whatever your health fix, go sign up and experience being truly Ultrahuman. Our season partner, IDFC First Bank, has earned its reputation as one of India's most startup-friendly banks through its First Wings program, which provides dedicated mentorship and tailored financial solutions to help early-stage ventures scale effectively. Coincidentally, many of Blume's portfolio companies, much later stage, also partner with IDFC First Bank for their banking and financial needs. If you're well-funded and scaling, they're a great lending and banking partners, and our portfolio companies would attest to that.